Jim, our next question sent via the Cult of Cornette Facebook group was sent by Chris Hunt. Can Jim recall
Is he Mike's brother?
Can Jim recall any creative ideas he may have had that got shot down?
Good Lord. Recall any? We don't have time left in the program. I'll tell you, one of the first ones I had creative ideas could be anything from, oh, golly, I'll get the Galaxians ray guns for the publicity photo. Or shit, props we used to bring out on TV. We'd do that on our own. You had some freedom with that. But actually taking part in an official creative meeting, one of the first, at least good ideas I thought I had, everybody poo-pooed in Dallas. And have I told you, Brian, because we've talked about Dallas umpteen times, I mentioned that they asked me sometime in April, leading into the May Texas Stadium show. We had been there since Christmas, right? And Fritz was not the owner. He was not the booker. Fritz was the owner. Ken Mantell was the booker. But going to the booking meetings were also David Manning, the head referee, Gino Hernandez and Chris Adams as the heel champions of Gary Hart. They also included them often. Kevin Von Erich was usually in the meetings, at least the 4 or 5 I went to. And Bronco Lubitsch. So it was like a fucking group, right? And they asked me, well, we see you're pretty creative with the finishes, with the, Midnight Fantastics. Would you like to come to the booking meeting? Well, geez, of course. I didn't know what I was getting into there either. And Ken Mantell didn't have control of anything. He was just sitting there with a pencil behind his ear, scratching his head. And then I think he kind of collected ideas and tried to formulate it some way or another. But they would all just throw out stuff, but it was basically always about the Von Erich boys and what their issue was going to be. Because imagine that, at least one of them and their opponents were in the goddamn meeting. But we were coming up on Texas Stadium as relates to the idea. And Brian, you may remember that year, 1985, they had one of the main events was for the NWA title with Flair and I think it was Kevin. Flair versus Kevin, NWA title match. And because they were going to have the 2-ring, 10-man fucking tag team match that was going to be where everybody came back and worked twice, they were going to have 2 rings there. So they made it legal that the world title match could take place in both rings also. So that's the stipulation. Ric Flair, Kevin Von Erich, NWA world title match can take place in both rings. Didn't say anything about no time limit, no disqualification, no count out, whatever, right? And also, you'll remember our match with the Fantastics for the American Tag Team title. That was that night, and I'm in the corner sitting next to Little John, and they had the match in both rings also, trying to jazz it up a little bit because it was so dreary with John. Anyway, what are they going to do for a finish with Flair and Kevin? And they said, how about a count out? Because this is 1985, and the Kerry was the year before, and he won. But on the Reunion Arena, Texas Stadium, Cotton Bowl, they couldn't have one of the boys just do a controversial job to the world champion. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, geez, they always do. They've been doing countouts here since Fritz was wrestling a champion, right? And they mentioned they've at an appropriate time, maybe they take a bump over the top rope and the one guy's grabbing the other guy and pulling him down and trying to get in. How many times have you seen that, Brian, as a wrestling fan? They pull each other down over and over until they get counted out.
Seen it a bunch of times, of course.
Yes, and everybody knows what's going to happen as soon as they start. My idea was this. I said, let me ask you a question. What are the rules of a world title match taking place in 2 rings? There are no set rules for that specific stipulation because it's never happened before. Therefore, David Manning, you always usually referee the world title matches. What about if you just so happen to referee the match before that and you get bumped or you turn your ankle or whatever? Don't even have to do it in the finish. Just turn your ankle getting out of the ring. And instead, here comes the rookie referee, Ralph Pulley, to referee the match with Flair and Kevin. And they're having the match in 2 rings. And Flair gets heat on Kevin. And he beats the shit out of him. He waltzes him across Texas. Makes him sell like he's going to the electric chair. And he's chopping him and he's figure four-ing him and he's whatever the fuck he's doing to him. And finally, Kevin starts his comeback. And the people are coming up and Kevin's kicking the shit out of Flair. And he shoots Flair off and upside down into the buckle and over the top rope, and he falls into the apron in between the 2 rings. And to get away from Kevin, he gets into the other ring. So Kevin follows him and he grabs him there, boom, boom, boom. And he shoots him off and Flair goes upside down again and falls into the middle of the goddamn 2 rings. And this time Kevin comes in the middle and gets him. And he grabs hold of Flair in his left hand by Flair's blonde hair, and he shows the people the claw hand, and he slaps the claw on Ric Flair, and who is fighting to keep upright and slowly going down onto the aprons of the rings where they meet in between the rings outside the ropes. And meanwhile, the rookie referee, placed in a position of pressure, refereeing his first world title match, is counting these fucking guys out because they ain't in ring 1 and they ain't in ring 2. They're in the middle. And right as fucking Kevin gets the goddamn claw hold on Flair and he's fought him all the way down and he presses him down to the canvas and Flair is out flat on his back on the aprons of the ring in the middle. Pulley gets to it was 20 in world class, gets to the 20 count and rings the bell. Double count out. What do you think?
That's pretty good.
Well, they said no. And if you go back and watch fucking tape, they take a bump out of the ring and each one pulls the other one off the apron until they're counted out.
That's pretty good.
So
that
was disappointing to me.
Did they tell you right to your face, like, no, we can't do that? I mean, how did they deal with you?
Well, no, they just, and then they started talking about doing the other thing the way they wanted to do it. All right. But I'm only 23. What do I know? It's my first booking meeting.
So did you have any say in the Little John stuff?
Somewhat. They wanted, I was his kind of on-site producer, whispering at him what reactions to have or to stand up or sit down or whatever. But they wanted him there beside me, and it was just to neutralize me from interfering, getting in the ring. They could sell to the fans, well, you won't be able to fuck the Fantastics now because this giant's next to him. But I knew I wasn't going to have a lot of interplay because he was an idiot as well as green and had never been in the business before. But they wanted him to have some part to play in the Fantastics getting the win. And because they had gimmicked it up, it was all 4 in the rings, tornado match in 2 rings. It was already confusing to people. And we were relying on this guy for anything in the way of timing in the finish. So as you go back and watch it, I think Bobby Fulton was paired off with Bobby Eaton and Dennis Condrey and Tommy Rogers. May have been the other way around. But nevertheless, it's supposed to be a near simultaneous double pin with one of the Midnight up and one of the Fantastics up. But the legal Fantastic is the guy that gets the pin. All Little John has to do is slap Bobby Eaton on the fucking leg to turn him around so he can be schoolboyed, I believe. And I'm sitting there going, slap his leg, slap his leg, slap his fucking leg. With my goddamn Paul Winchell ventriloquist.
Walter Winchell, that's right.
Well, yeah, maybe he could have heard Walter Winchell, Paul Winchell, without doing the ventriloquist voice, without moving his lips. Slap his fucking leg. And you see Bobby's even looking down like, where's the feet? And so in effect, the double pin ended up with the Midnight getting the pin first because the other guys did their shit correctly. And so we really won the fucking match. The people are like, "Rrr." And then the one spot they wanted me to do with Little John was to take my racket and hit him over the back with it and it break. Well, I couldn't use a metal one because you can't break those. It had to be a wooden one. But the wooden ones are graphite. And goddamn, you would have to seriously hit a hard stationary object pretty fucking strongly to break one of those rackets in half like they wanted it. So we tried to gimmick it. And we sawed it part of the way through, but he was such a big fucking schlub and his bench press was like 180. He was 7'6" and fucking 400 pounds or whatever. And so they sawed it too far, and I tried to take care of it through the whole match. No, I know what it was. I'm sorry, I told a lie. They wanted me to hit him over the back with it and him not sell it and then him grab it away from me and snap it in half. But I said, if we gimmick it where he can snap it, then I can't hit him with it. And they say, oh, yeah, you just work it. Well, I fucking hit him real light and the goddamn head fell off. Just fell off, boom. And I said that was a metaphor for the whole match. To lose the titles to the Fantastics, we actually won the fucking match. And then the only time that I've ever acquiesced to anybody actually breaking the racket, and it was a fart in church like that. So then we gave our notice when we got the check. But yeah, that whole thing was a goddamn mess.
Well, that was a great question.
But I still like that finish.
I remember that show. You were also out there with Rip Oliver for the 2-ring, was it 10-man tag?
Yes. Yes, I was.
But we'll revisit this question. You could have time to think about ideas that were shot down by Dusty or Watts or Dundee or Jerry Jarrett.
Well, and remember the Jim Herd went back on the deal to make the Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane part of the Four Horsemen with Flair and Arn when we only had 2 horsemen. And we started that in motion, and then he canceled that. And I was highly ticked off about that because I didn't want to do it to begin with. And came because I was then going to become a full-time announcer instead of manager. But since the boys would be taken care of and the horsemen would be replenished and Herd would get off my back, I agreed to it after I had the idea, and Flair said, okay. And then Herd canceled that. I said, well, fuck you then. I quit too. Flair had quit the booking committee like the week before. I went on vacation, came back, found out that they had ixnayed that idea. I said, well, tell him I've quit also so he can have his fucking booking meetings in private now.